It's time to talk about the GOAT, Vegito. Since his very first introduction into the hit mobile game Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, this guy made it clear that he wasn't playing. He was here to be the best, at least better than Gogeta. But like seriously, how good was Vegito to the years of Dokkan? Was he always the better counterpart? Well, that's what we're going to find out now. Vegito made his first introduction into the hit mobile game Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle on September 2015. His leader skill was solid, but key leader skills were a better option. He also was the first Fierce Fighter unit to ever release, so he didn't have a perfectly good partner, but he had a decent one being the physical Ultimate Gohan that released earlier that year. They shared 3 links together in addition to Vegito's 25% attack support, plus defense was completely irrelevant back then, so you could run him in slot 1 and have him super attack giving the whole rotation an additional 15% attack. So yeah, the guy was a monster. The next year started with a new int Vegito, just before the first year anniversary, because what's the best way to drain people's stone than to release a new Vegito? Like seriously, the guy could be absolutely trash and people would still suck. Well, at least I would. And I know you would too, don't lie to me. Fortunately, that guy was good. Like, he was objectively stronger than the Tech Vegito from the previous year. And the Dokkan meta was kind of still relevant back then. People were still debating whoever to run, like Tech Vegito for the utility or Int Vegito for the Dokkan power. But nonetheless, everybody agreed that they were both very good. Unfortunately, that didn't last long, as Gogeta literally came in the next month, rendering pretty much every unit that wasn't a support business. After 7 months of Gogeta dominating the whole game, it was time for Super Vegito to make his entrance, and man was that guy crazy. He had a solid link set, a good leader skill, and pretty much was invincible against normal attacks. But what set this guy apart was this new mechanic that would change Dokkan forever: counters. Ability to damage outside of super and normal attacks was just so strong back then, when the average attack set was between 25 to 150k. Bosses back then also didn't have as much defense or damage reduction as they do right now, so those counters were doing a lot of damage. You could pretty much sweep any Dokkan event back then with that guy, which was kind of a big deal at the time since Dokkan events were still pretty difficult to clear. We also had the awakening of Int and Tech Vegito. They were obviously very good, but sadly the Int Vegito got overshadowed by his tech counterpart, who was simply just a more versatile option with the support buff. Fast forward the end of the year, we had the release of Physical Vegito, an absolute monster. You're going to hear that a lot during that video, simply because Dokkan can't help themselves when it comes to Vegito. They have to make him the best every single time he releases. Anyways, like I said, Physical Vegito was just a more offensive but less defensive version of AGL Super Vegito. He had the counters and the additional super attacks. To be honest, I don't even know what they were thinking when they made that guy. Not only was he a god, but he was the first unit to introduce the super class leader skills, so your team didn't have to be limited to types anymore, and man, his band. Featuring Super Vegito, who, if I remember correctly, was still the best unit in the game at the time, and Gogeta, who wasn't that far off. But honestly, all of that was nothing compared to the hype this unit generated. 2017. We got ourselves a nice Vegito World Tournament rework card. He was okay for the time, but wasn't worth the grind at all. His defensive buff would only apply after he attacks, but he had no defense if he wasn't in slot 1. That was like some garbage design even for the time. People also figured by that time that all allies buffs on super attacks were actually added to the key multiplier of the other units and not their star reference stat. So if you were to super on slot 1, Vegito would roughly only give about 2 to 3% attack to the whole rotation instead of the 20% that's written. That's literally more than the number of guys watching this video while being subscribed. So my boy, if you're not subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Do it now! Nonetheless, the next month we had the release of Physical Super Vegito. This guy was an offensive powerhouse for the time. He was the first Vegito with a star return attack buff. You couple that with his counter and yeah, you guessed it. He was the hardest hidden TUR in the game and by far. Unfortunately, they gave him a 130% attack leader skill. I guess the Busaka was just too OP at the time, or they were just scared of Super Vegito offensive capabilities. Nonetheless, his reign of terror was very short because the actual powerhouse came out later that year. Tech Vegito Blue. Vegito Blue had a solid leader skill, tanked very well after a couple of stacks, and was the APT god for years to come. Sadly, they gave him over in a flash instead of prepared for battle, which wasn't that bad at the time, but obviously held him back with time. This was also the year of Super Battle Road. AGL Vegito was a killer here as long as you didn't eat any super attack. Physical Super Vegito was less tanky but better if you used some damage reduction items. And for Tech Vegito Blue, you just needed to protect him at all costs and hope that he supered multiple times so he could build up his offense and defense. Well, that was if the enemies actually survived up until that point. 2018, the year where Vegito got his first ever LR during the 3rd year anniversary. His team was literally so strong that you simply could never see him since you had to drop below 50% HP past the 6th turn. But if you did, if the stars aligned and you somehow managed to get this guy out, man, like, you've got to understand, little baby physical Vegito was a joke compared to this guy. His star option attack buff coupled with his LR stats made this guy counters hit like super attacks. Literally. And his base defensive stat was so high that he just couldn't take damage. On transform, he was less OP but still nothing to laugh at. He turned the super battle road stage into a joke with his high stat and ridiculous leader skill. And the fact that he didn't start as Super Vegito meant that you could actually run AGL or physical Super Vegito under his leader skill. Keep it number 11. It also was a must to clear the new Potara Super Battle Road stage that came that year where you actually could see him transform in the final battle against Gogeta. The same year we also had a new LR Vegito Blue who was an absolute monster of a unit and he was free to play, well, kind of. You needed a lot of fierce battle units to clear the story mode missions necessary to get him, so for some players at the time, he was kind of a summonable character, but let's be honest here. If you had been playing for a while, didn't reroll, and also kept one copy of any SSR you pulled no matter how bad it wasn't really a problem. Anyways, he was so good that he was literally seen as better than both Tech and Physical Vegito Blue. He simply was better defensively than both of them, and defense was starting to become very important at the time. 2019. No new Vegito that year, but we had the hypest EC of all time, AGL Super Vegito. I still remember everyone going crazy on Twitter and Reddit waiting for his details at 2 in the morning. I just wish that guy actually lived up to the hype. Like, don't get me wrong, he wasn't bad, it's just that they did the bare minimum. They only gave him 40% attack and defense after receiving an attack and a little scouter when below 40% HP, which was a ridiculously bad condition at the time. I think his biggest problem was that his easier just did nothing to patch his biggest problem yet, super attacks. Like, this guy could tank normals just fine even before his easier, but if you ate one super attack it was over, especially if it was before his first hit. But you know what, it's fine, if you can tank it, dodge it. Candy Vegito got his awakening that year and he was a tremendous super battle unit with his dodge, defensive stacking, and stun on super. We also had the introduction of the legendary Goku event, finally a stage where in Super Vegito could shine and show us the length of his power. I wish I could say the same about the other Vegitos. Actually, now that I think about it, Tech Vegito Blue wasn't that bad there too. It just took forever for his defense to build up and the last phase was in 2020. The year started with the 5th year anniversary, probably the hypest anniversary of all time, introducing a new LR transformer Vegito Blue. His animation were out of this world. As for his kit, he was good, very good, but he wasn't the best. I know I probably pissed some people off right now, but man, look, I'm a Vegito fan. Vegito is my favorite fusion, but that guy lacked severely defensive.
But dude, just put him in slot 3 until he just
Should've come, bro. I don't want to put my new shiny units in slot 3. I want to keep him on rotation, okay? At least he was good offensively, especially on that active skill turn and everything, but you needed to wait like 10 turns to see that. So he was pretty much locked behind long form content, and unfortunately this is the year the meta shifted back to the short form format with the introduction of the extreme super battle run. And let me tell you, this guy was a coin flip in ESBR. It's either you dodge in slot 3 or you die. Thankfully we had EZA of physical Vegito Blue that same year, here to save the day. That guy was absolutely nuts. Honestly, after the easy of AGL Super Vegito, we expected that guy to be a disappointment, but no, Dokkan actually over-delivered this time and surprised us with one of the best easy of all time. Imagine a unit that can super multiple times in a turn, that can counter, that takes pretty much no damage from normals, and greatly raises defense on super. This guy was dominating everything at the time. You could literally one turn the final phase of the legendary Goku event with him. I think this guy is probably my favorite unit of all time. There was also the awakening of the World Tournament AGL Vegito from 2017, and that guy had the potential to be great, but unfortunately he still suffered from the same problems he suffered from on release. His dodge could only be activated post super, but was only available in slot 1. So yeah, he suffered from bad design. Unlike Strength Super Vegito who came during the worldwide celebration. This guy was just ridiculous. I still remember looking at his kit back then and thinking, what the actual fuck is that? Like what? Why is this guy designed so good? He was a tank before fusing, and after 4 turns if you were below 77% HP which was pretty common, you had the choice to pull Vegito or not. And if you did, that guy was an offensive monster. Counters with built-in crit, and if that wasn't enough, the guy had an unconditional scouter for 10 turns. Bro, this guy single-handedly brought every other Vegito to the top with him. That Skyro was just so good for units that couldn't take damage from normal attacks. The only L for this guy was that he didn't yell Yo-chan on his active skill, but at least the OST was fire. Wait. You thought 2020 was over? Nah, bro. We had the Heroes collab at the end of the year, introducing Super Saiyan 4 Vegito and Dokkan. And honestly, it didn't even matter how good he was. It's Super Saiyan 4 Vegito. Like, it's a childhood dream to have this guy as a playable character in a Dragon Ball game. So we were all happy, but yeah, he was good for your information. He was a support with a high chance to counter super attacks, and with the Link skill rhythm that year, his links were pretty damn good. From now on, there was no new Vegitos as I'm recording this video. But 2021 introduced the God event, where AGL and Strength Vegito performed very well. Strength Vegito, Scalder, and Heal coupled with AGL Super Vegito ability to pretty much take no damage from normals was a very strong combo. LR Tech Vegito Blue was okay-ish if you were lucky early on with the dodges. Physical Vegito Blue was either mid or an absolute monster depending on your luck with his additionals. Candy Vegito was also still decent with his dodge chance. Later that year we had the GT Legendary Goku event with deadly super attacks which hurt all those Vegitos, but if you played strategically, Strength Vegito was still very dominant there with his Scalder. The same for the Legendary Vegeta event that released the same year. That Scalder and Heal were just so valuable. This was also the year we had the same name update, who didn't impact Vegito that much since there wasn't any competition between the same name Vegitos at the time. With the introduction of the Redzone in 2022, pretty much every Vegito got slapped out of the meta. But fortunately that year we got a ton of easiest, starting with Int Super Vegito. He was decent in base, and in the Redzone it was now easier than ever to meet his transforming condition that sadly didn't change with his easy. Transform, he was an absolute monster with his Ice stat and damage reduction. Way better than his Gogeta counterpart who really got the short end of the stick there. Like seriously, I'm not going to go on a tangent on Gogeta, but what were they thinking? Later that year, we had one of the most anticipated easy in the game. Tech Vegito Blue, the APT god coming back for his crown. And nope, he didn't make it. Tech Vegito Blue was good, but not good enough. He wasn't reliant enough, there was just too much RNG involved with his kit because either he sucked or he was god. There was literally no middle ground. And him having over and a flash over prepared for battle meant that he struggled a lot for Ki on the teams he was on. We also had easiest of Tech and Int Vegito alongside him, and they were good, but nothing crazy. And like back in the days, Tech Vegito completely overshadowed Int Vegito. We also had the easy of LR Strength Vegito Blue, who was so bad already that people were seriously considering not easy in him because he was legitimately better pre-easy. Luckily, Dokkan listened to the community and buffed his easy. He was now better post-easy and a very solid option for any type of long-form content. But that was crazy, my boy. How can you fumble an easy so badly that people are literally considering not easy in the character? This has to be like a top. Okay, maybe not a top 10, but like a top 20 biggest Dokkan fumbles. But at least they backed it up, so it's fine. 2023, they fumbled physical Super Vegito easy. It's pretty much just a 2022 AGL Super Vegito. Take normals and do no damage minus the utility Scouter. So yeah, he'll age well as a tank with a Scouter unit on the team, since this guy will never ever take damage from normal attacks, but that's pretty much it. On the other hand, they went all in with LR Tech Vegito Blue. He's now a decent floater in base and an absolute monster transform. This guy can super up to 6 times in the same turn while greatly raising defense of each super. He also only needs to do like 4 attacks to fully build up, and he can build up in any slot. So this guy will never age as a floater with his 70% chance to dodge in slot 3. So, and honestly, I thought that there was like simply no way that this guy could be good post easy. Like in my head, after physical Super Vegito easy, like I was convinced, like 100% convinced that this guy was going to be fumbled, like hard. Like I literally I didn't even believe 1 second that Tech Vegito was going to be good. But I'm glad that I was wrong, and that is just absolutely crazy. To conclude, over the years, various Vegito units have been released, each one bringing something new to the table and setting a new standard for the game. Vegito has remained a popular and highly sought after character, with his ability to counter attacks and deal massive damage, making him an essential part of any player's team. Despite the introduction of new characters and updates to the game, Vegito has remained one of the most popular and powerful character in the hit mobile game Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. So, Akatsuki, Bandai, you better give us a new Vegito this year, or else I'm going to. If you've liked the video and would want to see more, click on the video right here.